Hello, YouTube. Decided to think about some stuff. Um, Recently I've been into the Jeff the Killer lore, and it's really interesting because, as y'all know, I have problems. There's nothing wrong with me, but I have problems. You see what I'm saying? Anyone who has problems is going to be stricken with some sort of, you know, problems. It's a problem, right? The whole thing's a problem. It's a problem that I even have to explain. So anyway, um, you know me, I just like to talk, and I was just thinking, um, I skimmed through a story of Slender Man versus Jeff the Killer, and I do mean skim, as in I really just skimmed it. But I saw a video that was made kind of recently, and describing that story, and it was really cool. Just the idea of Slender Man versus Jeff the Killer is amazing. Obviously, there's kind of parallels between Freddy versus Jason. I think Slenderman and Jeff the Killer are just way cooler, and they are, aren't they? Um, because think about it more, Freddy and Jason, like Jason is just like a serial killer, like just a crazed killer. But I really don't know much about him. I may be a little bit wrong about it. But Freddy is a little bit more like he haunts the dreams. That's a little bit more psychological, but still they're just kind of old, and I mean they both kind of gross me out for some reason. So, and not like the scary kind of gross out, just like like kind of grosses me out. But yeah, Jeff the Killer's awesome. Like his story, it's like he moved into an area like a kind of like a fancy neighborhood or something, kind of like I guess the suburbs, right? And so he's going to go to school, and he was at the bus stop, and um like this kid jumped over him with a skateboard, and him and his brother were like, "What the hell?" I think that's what he said, and I mean, understandably so. Like, somebody jumping over with a skateboard. I mean, despite the coolness of someone on a skateboard or whatever, like people you just don't do that. And if you do, then expect to what the hell, right? Um, so then he has to get in a fight with this guy, and the other guy who was on a skateboard, he's got like two thugs with him, and he's got a knife. And Jeff like protects his brother and has to fight him. And like, I mean, he's young. I mean, he's like 12 or something. So I mean, it's just instincts, real survival, not like the bullshit like laws and like thinking like, oh my gosh, like I gotta explain this to the police and all that. Like he's young, he's innocent, he doesn't understand this stuff, and he's not expected to, as he shouldn't. Like, why would he? So we all know Jeff the Killer's innocent. So like he ends up fighting this guy, and he takes his knife away and stabs him in the arm, which is totally all right. I mean, if you're gonna stab somebody, then stab him in the arm. You know? I mean, that just show like underlines how innocent he is. Like obviously, I mean, despite the fact that he wasn't like supposed to know, like he knew not to stab him in like the stomach or chest or neck or whatever, because that would kill him. Like stab him in the arm or leg, because he was defending himself. So anyway, he does that, and like he shows that he's a great fighter. He like punches the other dude in like the stomach and like really hurts him. And I mean, some people are just born a great fighter. Like I am. I really am. Like you know I'm very stout. I am well built. Like even though I'm not like cut, what's under the skin is completely like it's a work of art. Like I can duke it out. So anyway, he goes home, and then the police officers come to his door, and what happens is that he doesn't know how to explain it, because he was like, the police officers are like, "What happened?" And he was like, "Well," his mindset was, "Well, he can't say that they pulled a knife on him first and they started to fight, because he has no proof, because nobody saw it." And like he ended up fleeing the scene, because when the bus driver comes, he's like, "Oh my gosh, like they're gonna blame me and my brother." So him and his brother decided to run away, which is all right. You're 12 years old. So because he was such a good person, he was like, "Yeah, like I stabbed him." and the police officers weren't understanding. They didn't look into it. They were just like, they were the corrupt people that they are, and they were like, okay, we're gonna arrest this guy. He just admitted he stabbed him. So then they were gonna arrest him, and then his brother comes down with like cuts on him and a knife, and like the police officers point a gun at him, their guns at him, and then his brother said like, I did it. I was the one who did it. After like Jeff already admitted that like he did it. Like, even though it was false, like how he did it, but he was so young and innocent, like he did it correctly. It's the adult's fault for like tricking him. So then his brother gets arrested and he's put into juvie for a year. And then the next day, as told earlier in the story, there was a neighbor party, and so Jeff goes with his mom to that, and his mom and dad are being like, they're trying to make him insane, right? Like they're acting like he's crazy, like they're just not giving him what he deserves. They're like persecuting him for no reason. So he's got nobody to back him up, and he's too young to understand. So they're like, go get some nice clothes, and he's like, well, I don't have any nice clothes, and they like don't care. And then he goes upstairs and he's like, okay, he finds some black pants because traditionally that's kind of a nice thing to wear. And then he doesn't have any shirts at all, and he's like, well, I've got these striped shirts, but they don't go with anything. And he's like, okay, well, I got this white hoodie. So he wears a white hoodie, and that's like probably as fancy as he could do, and I believe so. I mean, unless he actually had a fancy shirt to wear, then I mean a white hoodie's kind of like, okay, like anyone can wear a hoodie, right? Like a hoodie's like pretty much always acceptable because like hoodies can be worn over anything and blah blah blah. And it's just a plain white one. It's totally fine. So he's a smart kid, but um um so he goes to the party, and like all the adults are like treating him like he's crazy, and that's like, you'll make a kid crazy that way. And he's like, go play with the kids in the back, and the kids are kind of acting like he's crazy, or I mean I think they did, and they were like, hey mister, you want to play with us? And he's like, I mean, yeah, like who the fuck talks like that at 12, especially to another 12-year-old? And like, and then anyway, the same guy who attacked him before was at the party, and this time I think he's got a knife again, but his two thugs are with him, and they have guns, and they corner him and make him fight him, and so like they get in a really big brawl, and ends up like the adults were there, and none of the adults like interfered and stuff, and like I mean, it got to the point where the thugs were shooting at him, and they went upstairs and they got like bleach and alcohol on them. I think alcohol. Yeah, yeah, because one of them hit the other with like a bottle of alcohol earlier when they were going through the kitchen. Like you just gotta read or listen to the story, and like they set him on fire because one of those thugs had like a lighter and they threw it and they, set him on fire. And then because he had bleach and alcohol on him, he was cast aflame. So anyway, what happened is he rolled down the stairs on fire, and then he ended up waking up in the hospital with like bandages all over him. And when they take the bandages off, all his skin is burnt white, and it's like got a leathery feel to it. And he's like, no one's really helping him, and he's already like gone insane. I mean, like he's gone through so much already. So I mean, he's already snapped. He's like, to the point where I can explain, like, it's like no one's going to help me, so I might as well go, like, full on with this. Because he's a smart kid. Like, I mean, he's not experienced enough to, like, know these adults are going to be like this to him, and then he's got to, like, outsmart them, which is a huge burden. I know. And, so he sees it and he starts laughing, and he's like, no, this is perfect. This perfectly describes me, because, I mean, he kind of looks like a monster, I guess, because, he's kind of thinking that. I mean, he is like, a monster, because he like beat the shit out of like 3 kids who had a knife and 2 guns. And I mean, he whooped their ass. Like, I mean, he really got them. So, and then he goes home, and like, obviously he's being neglected, which is probably like the whole point of the story. And his mom comes in the bathroom, he's in there, and he had cut up his lips, so he had like a permanent smile on each side, and he just like cracks. And then like his mom like goes to his like, and her mom, like, his mom lies all the time. He's like, let me just go tell your dad or whatever. And then she goes to her dad and is like, get the shotgun. And so then before that, like, he actually can do that. Like, right when she tells him, like, he's at the door and he's like, you lied, mommy, and like guts him. And then he goes to his brother's room and he's like sleeping, and he wakes up and sees him, and he says, uh, Jeff says, go to sleep. And that's the end of the story. So we don't really know what happened at the end of the story. But Jeff the Killer is innocent. And I have for years been trying to explain what happens to me. But of course, like, these people are trying to make me insane. You know, I can go on and on and on about it, but I'm clearly a giant victim in this. And now that I have this story, it's perfect to get me out of the situation and to explain it. So, I mean, isn't Jeff the Killer very intriguing? He's such an interesting guy. And it's like, if you're not for him, then you're against him. And, like, that's totally wrong. So, that's what I've been thinking about lately. Just Jeff the Killer. And, yeah, just a lot about that. Other than that, I'm still trying to, like, hang out with people and stuff. But, you know, people all, like, are ganged up against me. I mean, they would rather give up all their liberties than, like, let me have, like, a happy life. And I've been making them do so. So it's just, you know, I'm not going away without taking what I deserve, which is more than everything. So, you know, this is just me talking about it.